Welcome to Conversations with Jen and Mel. This show is about real life with real people, having real conversations, from better health to mental health and more. Let's check out the conversation right now with your host, Jen and Mel.
All right. Today's episode of Conversations with Jen and Mel, we are talking about getting unstuck. And so I think Jen has a story that she wants to tell.
I thought you were starting with your story.
Okay. And so getting unstuck. Now, this is so serious to me because it also goes with how being impactful in our communities, being what our communities need. And so unstuck to me is something that I'm really praying about in our communities. I feel like our young people, and not just our young people, but it's something in me that is just drawn towards the young people and women that is saying, okay, how do we help them to become unstuck? And when I say stuck, I mean, we're not just stuck in relationships. We're stuck in the lack of identity. We're stuck in going around vicious cycles and perpetuating cycles that have not worked and have completely failed for generations that have come before us. And so we're on repeat. We're eat, sleeping, and pooping and not being productive. And so when I say unstuck, we're afraid to try something new. We're scared to be the trailblazer. And it's just so many places that I see us being stuck, and to the point where I'm at a place where I'm saying, God, give me a strategy to help, because it sounds like such a humongous undertaking. I realize that it requires a village in order to raise one.
Mm-hmm. And we've gotten away from that.
And we have gotten away from it. And so, I don't know if you all heard me tell this story. I took a young lady to an interview, and this was over a year ago. I took her to an interview, and when she got to the interview, she was unkept. And so afterwards, I took her to the beauty supply store and took her to buy her some hair so she could fix herself up. And she wanted to put in an application because they said now hiring. So she said, may I fill out an application? They said, we only accept resumes. Now I'm talking about a high school graduate. And she walked over to me and she asked me so politely and softly, of course, what's a resume? So recently, I took a young woman to an interview, and when she came out and she was filthy. Her clothes looked like the clothes that she slept in the night before. Hat on her head, unkept. And I'm simply like, but why? You have a washer and a dryer in your home. You have laundry detergent. You have the things that you need, but you're not utilizing them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm watching so many people that it scares me. It scares me because I see so many people wasting time. And I don't know if it's because I'm in a certain age, I'm at a certain age in my life, or is it because I've become more sensitive to the time that we're living in? Because the Bible talks about us being like the sons of Issachar, able to discern the time. I don't know if it's because I'm discerning the time that we're living in, but I feel so adamant about people being productive in this hour. I really feel like we've been given a grace to do something different, but now is the time to proceed. And I see so many people falling asleep. And when other people fall asleep, what they don't understand is that the weight of their assignment falls on those that are doing, because their assignment still must be done.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just have this burden to be of assistance in however God will use me to help those who desire to become unstuck. And sometimes I find myself in the hard place because I walk out of being therapist into the coach. Even wrote a whole curriculum on being a life change coach. Because my spiritual dad would say that he's going to push us right out into the street. And that's exactly it. Because I want to be responsible for pushing you up out of that place. And I jokingly say sometimes that people need to be quote unquote dog walked. But when I say that, what I mean is that sometimes people need to be encouraged, but they need to be encouraged where they can, in a way, and pushed in a way, or should I say pulled.
You're pushing and pulling
pulled
at the same time.
In a way that they could begin to get legs. And so sometimes we want them to eat the whole roll when they can only digest a bite. You know, and so we're giving them instructions on what to do, but we're giving them too much, and we need to walk with them. And I see a generation that need us to walk with them, and it's like it's not enough of us to go around. Anyway, so I don't know. So becoming unstuck, not fearing the unknown. How do we become unstuck? We take the risk. Because if we don't take the risk, we end up with more of what we have, the same of what we had, the same that the generation before us had. If we don't take the risk, then nothing changes. And the risk is not someone else's responsibility. The risk is up to you because it will directly impact your life and those who are attached to you. So it's worth it. What you got to lose? I'm seeing so many people not taking the risk with nothing to lose. So it is, I don't know. I see so many people right now pouring into our youth. But it's not just our children. It's our young adults. It's our women and even our men. And so what say ye, Jen? Because this is a subject
I think
that I'm passionate
you said that you are passionate about it for sure. You were talking about the fear of the unknown. It's not that you lose the fear, it's that you do it anyway. So be afraid and do it anyway.
Yeah.
That's what taking the risk is.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that you're devoid of fear. But you do it anyway.
Yes.
In spite of. Our producer shared a story with us of a young man who went into a store with his application folded up. Not his application. Was it the application?
Yeah,
yes.
his job
with his application folded up in his pocket. And when he handed it in, not only did he have to unfold it first, but it was written in red ink. So he ended up talking to the young man and the person at the store to say, give this young man an opportunity to do it over correctly. And he did that, and he was able to, they gave him a chance, right? But some of the fundamentals are being missed with how do you graduate high school and you don't know what a resume is? Or you don't know that an application needs to be filled out in black ink. You might get away with blue, but red, we started doing it in red. And I'm sure that is what he had, or he wanted it to stand out, right? Maybe he's a creative.
He wanted it to stand out.
He wanted it to stand out. He wanted you to see, be able to read it. But yeah, it seems like some of those basics and fundamentals are being missed with our young people.
I remember when I first started living in Muskegon County, I remember approaching Health West, which is the fiduciary between the middleman between the state and the mental health. And I was talking to them about opening up a youth drop-in center. And those are some of the principles that we wanted to teach. at the drop-in center, not just to deal with the mental health, but to deal with the at-risk population, to deal with the grief and loss, because one of the symptom, one of the side effects, not side effects, but one of the responses to grief is anger. So one of the signs of grief and loss is anger. And so we live in communities that are people are grief stricken. And so it's manifesting in anger. And so we have a lot of anger in different places, and that's one of the places. And also to be a bridge between the educational system and the young people, because they were already behind, and then COVID hits, and now everything is exacerbated. Everything has become extremely out of control, And so we need people who will come in and make up the hedge. And that was my desire, because I see such a bridge that needs to be in order for our communities to be healthy. And what I find is that becoming unstuck, it starts at the head, even the head in the government in our communities. We want our communities to model other communities, and we have these blueprints as to what we want to look like, but we have this idea of what we want the infrastructure to look like, but we never address the citizens of our community. We never address the needs of the residents. So we want to beautify these places. We want all these headstrong and what they call it when they're top heavy. We want all these top heavy communities where everyone that's running it is well paid, but we have all these impoverished citizens that we're not pouring into, that we're not helping to be healed, where we're not meeting them at the point of their need. And so becoming unstuck. How do we become unstuck when even our government is stuck? Even those that rule over us in so many communities, even especially smaller communities, like you don't see it as much in places that you can point out, like even in Detroit, because you see people that are defying norms in different places, that are creating new sets of standards, and really even like a Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network, they're like tapping into everything. Like Teen Wellness Center, they have an overseer, Pam Lamb, that is in everything, doing everything. I mean, she is tapping into the community, and they're building up as much as they possibly can. I don't know if she's still as active as she was when I knew her, but there's different places that are rising up to meet the demands of the community. But then you have some places that have fallen so far behind, but the demand is growing vastly. And so becoming unstuck. How do we get our governments unstuck? How do we get?
That requires community participation.
Yes.
You have to show up to all those board meetings, community meetings, or whatever they call them.
Yeah. And I was having that conversation with someone, and they were like, you sound like a politician. And I'm like, but I hear the cry of the people, and it's almost like the generations from beyond are saying, are calling out from a place that they see that our generation, that they're not ready to move forward, that they fought so hard to get to a place, and in that place their name has died. It's interesting for you to see your legacy die. It's interesting for you to see your bloodline unable to carry the baton. You can't pass the baton to anybody in your bloodline because they can't carry it. They're not in position. And so you build something with all your might. You pour in, trying to develop something that you can't handle or hand over to your namesake, because they're not in the mindset. And not because they weren't simply trained up. Because they thought that what you trained them what you trained them to do was not important. They saw no relevance for it. So what say ye, Jen?
Well, right now I'm thinking, okay, I'm guilty.
Oh.
Because my mother was very, she had a lot of talents. And I was not interested in none of them. I didn't have the patience. And I did not have an interest in those things. And now I regret that I did not take the time to learn. Yeah. To learn from her.
But do you feel like you actually are stuck? Because I see you always.
Okay, I'm not.
Always.
Not because I'm stuck, but because I think that having talents that you can do with your hands is an important skill.
Yeah.
And for instance, my mom crocheted. She crocheted, she knitted, she sewed. She was also a cake decorator. Those types of things, I mean, you can have a lot of side hustle when you have those talents and skills. You know how much you can sell a blanket for?
So, Jennifer is a serial hustler.
I am.
She is a serial, not entrepreneur. She just a straight up hustler.
However,
Is she part Jamaican?
I am not.
Yes.
I am not. That is the one thing that is not on my, not the 23andMe, what's the other one? The Ancestry.com. I'm not Jamaican. There's about 14 other things on there though. Yes. But I would say outside of me and my personal regrets that I did not take interest in some of those things, I would say that our young people, I think they have video burnout. Video, I don't know, I'm making up a word.
What happens?
Their brain, something is wrong with their brain development from sitting on them video games all day. So they don't have, I don't want to call it a hustle, but whatever that internal stimulation is to like go
That
get
drive.
it is missing.
Yeah. Yeah. They're extremely passive.
Extremely passive. And scary. My niece, for example, she wanted a job, she applied on her own, but she was terrified. Probably for the first 6 months. Just interacting with people.
Wow. Was she like that before COVID?
I mean, I can't say because she wasn't in that setting. I mean, you know, when you're at home, it's different. So I'm not sure if she was like that before COVID or not, but she struggled.
I know a lot of people who, after COVID, they had a hard time socially. A lot of social anxiety. For a lot of people, things still haven't returned, to their previous norms.
Right.
Set them back socially. And so when I think of Unstuck, another way that I see, and so in my life, the very place that I think that I have been stuck and becoming unstuck is dealing with my diet. And so I am extremely healthy. And I'm a very wealthy woman, and that's how it one of the ways it manifests in my life, in my health. And so that is what God has given me. And I'm so graced, but there's times when I take that for granted. Because becoming unstuck, when I understand that a change of diet, different discipline, it should be necessary, it should be required. I don't want to take my good health for granted. And I didn't learn that from previous generations, the priority on proper diet or exercising. So even though now I've been able to manage my weight at a healthy place, my diet, I still work to maintain a healthy diet, exercise, the right water, and nourishing my body versus feeding it. And so coming out of that stuck place where I do what my body requires in order to get maximum and optimal use out of it versus what I've been taught to do, or what was shown me to do.
Right.
Yeah. And so that is a place that I see us stuck. I see us stuck. We get stuck in our health. We get stuck right there with our regimen and our routine. And so many people today, we have all these different things and drugs and things and supplements and pills and surgeries and procedures that help us to lose weight. But are we actually becoming healthy?
Probably not.
And so fostering an environment that we're actually becoming healthy. And the crazy part is now when you say that, we even go to our diet and what America's feed us, when I was talking about our communities and the government before. So what in the heck are we even eating out of, for real?
The stuff they making in the lab.
When our fruit is unfruited. Our fruit is
Right.
Our fruit is unrooted. It's unfruited and unrooted,
and so is our meat.
And yeah. Wow. This seems like something we saw in a television show. When we talk about this, and this is actually the day that we living in,
Okay.
that we ingest is made in labs. So with that being said, why wouldn't we expect, okay, so now if we put 2 and 2 together, why wouldn't we expect it to manifest in certain ways? So why wouldn't we expect, if our bodies aren't receiving the nourishment and the nutrients that it needs in order for us to properly develop, why wouldn't we see our young people growing up with greater deficits and greater voids?
Right.
And even though if they go and take a test, it comes up that they don't have hormonal imbalances, but what is it that they do have? Because they're not eating real food.
Right.
And many of them have never even hardly been fed real food, for this has been happening for quite some time. So why wouldn't it have a response? It's got to be some correlation between the two.
I agree with that. So how are we getting unstuck besides changing our diets?
How do we get unstuck, you all? How do we help our communities to evolve? How do we participate in that? I know that as believers, we're praying for our communities, but I do believe, and I keep saying this, and this is the third time I've said this probably in the last couple of months to anyone, that now it's time for the church to become the church outside of the 4 walls of the church. And that we need to go out into the communities and meet them at the point of their needs and become resource centers unto our communities. It shouldn't be just them coming in and donating to us, but we should have services. We should have different things that we offer unto them in order to meet them. We should be a community within the community. So I believe that how do we meet the need? I think it's time for the church to rise up, for the sons to take their place, and for us to fully occupy until he comes. I think that we need to model what wholeness looks like in order for our communities to be whole. I think we need to stop looking for our government to make the right choice and us start making the right choice once we see the deficit and acknowledge it from within. I think it's time for the church to take over. I'm sorry.
Why are you sorry?
Because that's what it is.
I don't think you have to be sorry if that's what you the problem is.
I do. I think it's time for the church to wake up. We're praying, but we've been empowered and we've been graced to do something. Now the question is, okay, God, give us a strategy. And then we need to be about our Father's business. And it's not just in the four walls. You know? He said, feed his sheep. What is it that his sheep need? More than just finding them a home in glory. They need to be fed. They need to be fed wisdom, knowledge, understanding, revelation, vision. They need to be fed. You know? Some of them are even missing resources to help sustain them in this land. So that's just my perspective. Church, I'm putting it on you. How do we get unstuck? The church gets into position and leads them out. That's how we get unstuck. That's my revelation of that. How do we get unstuck? We take on the responsibility, and that deficit that exists in the world, we take it upon ourselves. And we go and get our people. We go and get God's people. Because for God so loved the world that he gave. So we give ourselves to the cause. And that's it. That's how we become unstuck.
All right, Unstuck. If you are unstuck or you are stuck and you want to get unstuck, how do you do it? Make a plan.
I think you need to connect with people who are unstuck. People and places that you see growth, that you see forward movement, because anything that's dead ain't moving. So where you see growth, go and take a look. You want to know. And so we have a hard time with that because when we see people moving, sometimes we're intimidated from it. And instead of us being intimidated by it, we need to grab hold of it and go figure out what it is that they're doing that's causing forward movement. Yeah. I think you need to link yourself with a visionary, someone that's moving and someone that can see. Mm-hmm. Because it's so funny because birds of a feather flock together, right?
That's what they say.
Yeah. But if you keep flocking with your own kind, you'll die there.
See you next week.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Conversations with Jen and Mel. Please join us every Monday at 8 p.m. for new episodes on Facebook, YouTube, Rick.tv, and the Rick TV app by way of Apple TV, Fire TV, and Roku. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Join us again next time on Conversations with Jen and Mel.